Hey all, Daniel Agapito here for Metal Rules, and today I have the honor to be here with Bobby, which is the guitarist, the vocalist, and generally the mastermind behind 16, which is one of the most hard-hitting sludge bands out there, and they will be releasing their new album, Guides for the Misguided, through Relapse Records on the 7th. So, Bobby, how are you?
I'm great. I'm great. Nice to be here. Thank you.
So to start off here, you founded the band all the way back in 1991, which means you guys are nearing your 35th year on the road, yet are still going strong. What would you say are some of the main takeaways from so much time on the road?
Well, we weren't on the road that whole time. We kind of have a quote unquote business model for longevity uh, because, every 3 years we release a new album. We don't tour as much as we should, in my opinion, but we do get out there. Either a short tour a couple of times a year, and in 2 weeks we're going to Europe for 3 weeks to do a European tour. Um, but the key to our longevity is just some dedication and inspiration.
Hmm.
I'm still inspired to write, record, and play live. So as long as that, we have the inspiration and the kind of work ethic to continually write and think that we're doing something relevant, then, so it's this, success or failure is immaterial. It's just all about continuing. Just continue. Just put your head down and write some riffs that resonate with you and hopefully resonate with some other people.
And you've gone on record before saying that your main early influences were like 7 Seconds, Bad Brains, and the wave of amphetamine reptile bands such as Helmet and Jesus Lizard. And while this more hardcore influence is still present in the current works, you guys sway much more to a more sludgy direction. What would you say made you sway that way?
That all kind of happened on our second record. So the blueprint, I was literally a teenager when I started this band in the beginning. So um, you know, so it went from kind of discovering Fudge Tunnel after we recorded our first record and playing a lot of shows with Fu Manchu, who were a local band as well in Orange County when we were growing up, and so I think that was a primary influence of like down tuning. Both those guys tuned down to D. In fact, Fu Manchu, Scott, and this other guy O, who has sadly passed away. He used to be in a band called Fluff. Basically explained to me how to tune the guitar down to C when I was like 19 years old, you know? And so that once I discovered that and then started seeing bands like Caius, uh, and that just really kind of changed my approach. So, maybe in like 93, I started tuning the guitars down to C. And that, kind of fell into sludge. So we're definitely not the first, but we're an early adopter
Mhm.
of the sound. So
And before you released Curves the Kick, your first album, you were able to briefly tour with Slayer to open a few shows for them. Do you have any memories of those gigs?
yeah, I'll never forget that. We were super young. I mean, we weren't even a band for like a year, and then we just got this amazing opportunity of I think one another band couldn't make it, and somehow they offered us, like 3 shows, and we went and did them. Um, Life changing. Um, didn't change much as far as, because it was just 3 shows. It's not like we were put on a whole tour, but it's definitely bragging rights and winning the rock and roll lottery very early on. But I don't think it changed much in retrospect, other than giving us, meeting your idols, which was amazing. You know,
Did you manage to keep in touch with the Slayer guys at all, or was it just a one-time thing?
it was just I mean, this was that came together through their management. Again, we were like kids, and they were super nice. I used to be friends with someone on their crew, a guy named Lumpy, for years. He has since passed away as well. But they were always super gracious to us. And that's it's a sink or swim moment to put any band to open up for their crowd. Their crowd does not want to see you. So, you better be confident in what you do. And I think we did the job as kids.
So Dropout and Blaze of Incompetence are two very strong albums, but it seemed like with the lineup changes and whatnot, it was a very unstable time for the band. And as all other 16 works from that point forward, it started dealing with some quite heavy lyrical themes. So, like, could we say that was all a product of what was going on at the time?
I think so. I mean, I wasn't the oops, my light keeps turning off. I wasn't the front man at that point, nor was I writing all the lyrics. So I can't speak to those directly, but I can tell you circumstantial. We were in our early 20s, mid 20s. Substance abuse became a problem. And like anything, it influenced for good or bad what we were doing. Um, and I think that speaks to the the output then, and also the lineup changes. It's never a key for stability when there's substance abuse involved. And you're young and you just think it's partying, but it starts to get pretty dark pretty quick when A, people are dying, B, there's legal ramifications of your behavior. But we learned those lessons early, and kind of continued on. Personally, I'm the survivor. I'm the last man standing. I've always felt motivated to play for art's sake, just to create art. So
And as we know, heading to the release of Zoloft Smile, things were getting worse and worse by the second, and by the time it was released, you had already been out of the band for a while. What was your exit like?
it was mutual because I got offered a job in San Diego, which is like 100 miles away, and we had made Zoloft Smile, which I thought was an amazing record, and no labels wanted it. It sat around for a year or 2 years, and nobody would even put it out. So we were all feeling very defeated about it. Um, I got a job in San Diego and then ended up having a kid. So I definitely couldn't tour with a brand new newborn. So it was just kind of like the torch was passed to those guys. And then Chris, the singer, he had quit because he had gone to rehab for, like I said, substance abuse. And it was kind of up to Phil, Rafa, and Mark to tour on a record 2 years later. And then they did a tour and then they put it to rest. And then 3 years later, we got together for a quote unquote reunion show. And just at that practice, I just wrote 3 new songs. And we gave those songs to Relapse, who was looking at reissuing our older stuff. And they say, well, you guys want to do a record? And we were like, yes. So we've been doing it ever since, just by the fact that we have, a solid label that wants to put out our stuff. Um, so I mean, that was pretty much that whole time frame in a nutshell. No huge drama or anything like that, other than growing up, addiction, and turbulent times in life, which is kind of the norm, I think.
And yeah, that's basically a perfect segue into my next question, which was you guys came back. You guys are from like 2007, and then you released Bridges to Burn with Relapse. So that was like the turning point. That practice with you writing the songs was like the turning point that convinced you to get back with them.
Yeah, I mean, I've never stopped playing music like my whole life. I had a couple bands when I wasn't with 16 for like 3 years, but it was just like playing with friends, local recording. Um, you know, And I think I've chosen my path. I'm gonna do nothing, I mean, I work a day job, I have a family, and I have the band. And the band's just what I do. It's my art. So yeah, that came together. And we always really respected Relapse because we were huge fans of, a lot of stuff on their label, especially Neurosis at the time. So, um, we benefit from the association. I don't think they benefit too much, but we're just, it's 50-50. But I'm happy to still have people's ears to continue.
And with Bridges to Burn, was there any like extra pressure with it being your debut on Relapse, your like reunion record?
Not really. I mean, if so, I didn't feel it. You know, I just kind of did my best songwriting wise, and I know Tony at the time was the bass player, and he wrote a good portion. So it was just me and him getting together again and kind of doing what we had done since Dropout, and piecing it together. Um, I mean, I like that record too. I'm the type of guy though, I don't really look back at those records. I'm always like, next, next. Yeah, it's like after I've recorded something, it's almost dead to me. I just want to make new stuff.
And despite everything that has happened with the world as of late, y'all have been quite active, even with the pandemic, releasing two, now three albums and two splits since 2020. How was the pandemic like for you guys?
Um, you know, individually, I think we got off a lot easier than other people did. Because we're at a point in our lives where, we're either in our 40s or 50s. We have the survival part of life down, how to pay your rent, how to take care of your family and all that stuff. So luckily, most of our jobs were able to be done remotely. And, once we got past, and we still stayed creative during that. We were still sending each other songs, still writing, sending opportunity. We had tours booked that, of course, the first tour was like, okay, we're going to put this off for 3 months and this whole pandemic thing will be over, and then, okay, and then we're going to put this off for a year and this whole pandemic thing will be over. And then, 3 years later, we had like three tours canceled, but we still put out, records. And it was just like, I don't know, man. What else are we gonna do? This is what we do, like I said, success, failure, it's immaterial. I just enjoy the actual act of firing up tube amps and screaming into a microphone and, playing for 10 to 500 people. It really doesn't matter. Like it's pretty all good. And that's like my kind of level of optimism about it. But, we didn't have jobs that really affected. I mean, it was tough for some of us, but none of us had like service industry like jobs that were like totally shut down and where you had to rely on the government for money completely. Um, it was a scary time for everybody. I mean, we definitely lost friends. I mean, people died that I know of COVID, relatives, some people that weren't even, sick or pre-existing conditions. They just got it and passed away. It was a terrifying time. Glad it's over. And if you would have asked me, you know, 15 years ago that there's going to be this pandemic that's going to shut down airports, that 1 million people in the US are going to die, and all this stuff, I would have said, nah, that's not possible. And here we are at the other tail end of like that happened. So kind of makes you wonder of what's next. Jeez.
Yeah, it was tough. And now moving on to guides, songs like the first single, Proudly Damned, they're stories of like profound anguish and depression, which are themes that have always been present in your works. And in all of these years, how would you say you've evolved like as a person on the personal side?
I think there, a lot of art was focused within, and anger within, kind of, uh, I hate myself kind of things. And that's evolved to pointing that either accepting bitterness, accepting anger, and using it as a motivation, and just, plain injustice is kind of enraging. So there's plenty of injustice in the world to stay motivated for. And so I think that's the biggest shift was, I went from I hate myself to I hate you. Or not just, particularly you or anybody, but you know, the the ones in control. So I think there's gonna been an internal to external shift, and that definitely happened.
And Proudly Damned also lays into a more spiritual side of things, which leads me to ask, has spirituality become an aspect of your life in any way?
No. I like to think a lot of that new album is almost an atheist manifesto. Um, you know, um, that kind of, I think the word spiritual and cult and um, not living in the here and now by thinking that your pain has meaning in the afterlife. Um, I believe those are, those are fairy tales. The church tells you fairy tales. Um, you're supposed to learn from fairy tales, but you're not supposed to accept those as truth. And what we have is a mass delusion worldwide of people that accept these things as truth when they have no like setting in reality. And so I think that a lot of people use that, the fairy tales, the things that are just simply untrue, as justification for their behavior. And that, why would I, everything's for an afterlife, everything, it's almost like that. So are you like tipping the scales of karma? Are you buying penance and Catholicism? Are you just buying, you're going to buy your way in? So, the whole thing. And again, I'm not the first one to write music on this. In fact, you could pretty much call all heavy metal, from, South of Heaven to Danzig to Sabbath to everyone. So, I'm kind of kicking more dirt on the pile of heavy metal, and almost, but I think it's relevant today, especially with things like, the Christian nationalism, and in my society here in California, where churches have a lot of political and real estate and money and total power. And I question, by being tax free, what good are they doing to contribute to the rest of us? And sometimes that's questionable. And again, I'm not the first person to even look at this. I mean, you know, even suicidal tendencies songs have that, you know. So again, I'm not definitely not inventing the wheel here.
Fair enough. And when commenting on the new album, you said that you guys have been on like creative autopilot for a number of years now. Could you quickly touch on that? Like, where does the inspiration for writing 16 material come from?
We're just like those. We're just old music heads at this point. Like new, old. I mean, music is just like 80% of my daily life. There's like I said, there's work, there's family, there's socialization, there's all kinds of things you got to do. But the one constant is the discovery and the feeling of music. All styles. Uh, and so I think that we've exercised that creative muscle for so many years now. This is just what we do. This is the routine. This is the pace that which we create. And and it's still, like I said, like I'm not trying to write the last song on a record. Every time I'm writing the first song, like every song is like goddamn best effort, and I think even if you can't hear it, we're still stretching ourselves and stretching each other creatively. So that's really the reason. There's the ethic and the routine, but there's also the inspiration that we're just like music heads. Like you can just, you know, there's stuff that I'm just literally discovering today that's been out for 30 years, 40 years. Classic rock, punk, everything. There's bands that I haven't heard of. I mean, just the other day, like there was some comment that said we sounded like Catatonia, and I'm like, I've never even heard of Catatonia. And then I listened to Catatonia, and I'm like, oh yeah, that band rules. And I guess I'll let it influence me now. So, it's all there's so it's music is a never-ending well that just give me more, you know, give me more.
Yeah, Katatonia is very cool. And something else you said that it really caught my attention was that this album is probably the closest you guys have come to a concept album, and the inclusion of the two covers, the Bad Brains cover and the other one, which doesn't quite come to my mind right now, was to lessen the heavy hand thematically and to lighten the focus a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I despite all these serious lyrical themes, uh, you know, rigid dogma, life, death, evil, retribution, revenge, all the themes in the lyrics, um, were not 100% serious, mad all the time. And so those covers, even though like stylistically it sounds like us, the lyrics are very different. I mean, the Bad Brains cover is from kind of one of their unknown albums. It's not even on Spotify. That the guy from the Beastie Boys, I think Ad Rock or one of them, or MCA, had produced, where I guess HR had left or something, some crazy story of them making the record. But the drummer Dion brought this song and he's like, listen to this song. It is so bizarre. Like it's two parts, but they're done subtly different each time. The lyrics are give thanks and praise to God. And so we're like, oh man, religion is lame, but not when Bad Brain sings about it. So we're like, let's include this. And then we're just kind of like surprised at how good it turned out because I think it's a song that deserved more oxygen. It's not like Bad Brains needs our help. But I think it's a cool opportunity for us to lessen the like we're not you know screaming about the hollow constructs of religion constantly. There is a wink and a nod to a lot of it as well, and the same thing with the covers from like the indie rock band Superchunk, from a record from like 1990 of theirs. And I just always thought that that was like a hard rock song that never got its day. So I just, and I really liked the lyrics. So I just thought, deserves something to put on there. And again, it lightens the load and, they're short songs. But that's just, varieties of spice of life.
And moving on to something more open-ended, could you just briefly speak on the album's title, Guides for the Misguided?
So that, I make lists of lyrics. I write lyrics, poetry. I'm kind of writing and creating it a lot of times. And that was on a list of possible song titles that the band all just liked. They're like, oh, that's cool, Guys to the Misguided. And then um, I was in a bookstore in San Francisco, and I saw there's a title of a book called The Guides for the Misguided. And it was written by this prosecutor or something in the 1930s or 20s or something. It's very old. And it's called The Guide for the Misguided. And essentially, he realized that he was prosecuting people for serious crimes. And the one correlation between them all is that the more fundamentally religious they were, the more apt they were to be into criminal behavior and murder and stuff like that. And I thought, well, that kind of fits with the theme. So, I didn't set out with that theme, but it's based on two books. It's that book, and then it's another one called The Atheist Manifesto that I was just kind of, thumbing through and getting lyrical ideas. But Guides for the Misguided is based on that book's we came up with the we came up with the title. I came up with the title thinking I invented it, and then I find out that there's a book that was written 100 years ago about this that are about some of the hypocrisy and things that everybody's screaming about today, that this isn't a new problem historically. And I just thought it was kind of like cool serendipity, has a good ring to it, and plus the message I think is right on. It's like you can be very religious and still be a totally evil person.
And to close off here, last question. With a great album on the horizon and a new Euro tour already scheduled, what can you expect from the future? Do you all already have new material for an album?
Yeah, constantly. We've demoed several. We're always writing or covering songs or just kind of staying, like I said, like flexing that creative muscle. That's kind of what we're doing. Timing, I don't time or plan much. I didn't even know this album was going to be an album until we looked back on it after we were done recording. And then I sent it to Relapse to see if they're interested. I didn't ask them to, oh, I'm going to make a new record. Do you want it? I showed them a total proof of concept finished product with idea for the cover, with concepts, with everything, and then to see if they were on board. And luckily, they are. So probably more of the same. Give me another, give me another 2 to 3 years, and we'll assemble another one because this is just what we do.
So yeah, thank you so much for your time, Bobby. Guides for the Misguided comes out on February 7th through Relapse Records. Go listen to it if it's already out by the time this interview is out. And before we leave, Bobby, do you have any final message, anything you'd like to share with the Metal Rules audience?
Uh, Thanks for listening to me babble. And as always, thanks for listening. Fellow music fans, appreciate you.
And